The inner doorway deep within you and the place where the noise of life can no longer reach there is always a quiet space, like a sleeping light. I have spent years observing the human mind, and I have come to see that no one walks this journey alone. Even when you feel tired or anxious, or when you stand at a crossroads that makes your heart heavy like stone, there is always a gentle presence working for you. It does not live outside your life like some distant being. It lives in the depth of your mind where the subconscious touches the invisible strength of limitless wisdom. You have felt it before. Only life sometimes becomes too fast and you forget the soft language of your inner world. When a thought appears, like a small flash, when an intuition stops you from stepping into risk, or when a calm feeling spreads through you for no reason at all, that is the moment you touch the deepest part of who you are. I call that presence your inner guardian angel, not to create mystery, but to describe the wise and living energy moving quietly inside you. From the first days of humanity, people believed they were protected by an unseen strength. Today, the science of the mind tells us that the subconscious works without stopping. It records every emotion, every image, every word you whisper to yourself, and quietly shapes them into your lived experience. When you understand this, you begin to see that life is not just a series of random events. It is the subtle response from a wisdom you have forgotten for too long. There was a time when I thought that strength came from distant forces, but as I listened more deeply, I realized it was right here in every breath, in every silent moment, in the gentle guidance I no longer wanted to ignore. Your guardian angel does not sleep. It does not grow tired. It never leaves you, not even when you doubt yourself, or feel lost, or stop believing in your own strength. It keeps sending signals, sometimes through intuition, sometimes through coincidence, sometimes through a soft vibration you simply call a feeling. The only thing you need is to turn inward and open the doorway again. I invite you on this journey to slow down a little, as if you are stepping into a sacred place hidden in your own heart. Let the words ahead touch you like a reminder that you do not have to fight alone, and that within you there is a gentle wisdom waiting to speak. If you are willing to open your heart, this journey will not just be a lesson. It will be an experience that leads you back to the peace that has always belonged to you. The presence that always watches there. Are days when you wake up feeling like you must hold everything together on your own, from work to the unnamed worries that slip quietly into your heart. You may be looking toward a blurry future or trying to balance responsibilities that make your mind feel heavy. In that flow, you sometimes forget that within you there is a presence watching everything, gentle like the first light of morning. It is the part of wisdom that I call your inner guardian angel, a spiritual element that is deeply real because it appears in every choice, every quiet moment, every intuition you may have overlooked. This presence is not a figure or a distant idea. It is the highest part of your subconscious, always working even when you are asleep. I have met many people through my teaching and writing, and they all share one thing. In their most fragile moments, or in their most uncertain hours, there seems to be a soft guiding force pulling them away from danger or leading them toward where they need to be. Let me tell you about Michael. He was a man who looked strong, the pillar of his family, always acting like he could handle anything. But at night, when no one was around, he lay awake, feeling that life kept pushing him forward without caring how exhausted he was. One afternoon, as he was driving home after work, Michael suddenly felt strongly that he should take a side road instead of his usual route. There was no logical reason for that feeling, yet he followed it naturally, as if someone had placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to go this way. That evening he heard the news that a major accident had happened on the main road. Later, when he told me the story, he shook his head and said, "I do not know why I turned, I only knew I had to." He did not call it a miracle. I did not call it something mystical. I simply knew there are moments when the conscious mind becomes quiet and the inner wisdom begins to speak for us, and if we are sensitive enough to notice, life becomes much lighter. Your guardian angel always watches not to judge you or catch your mistakes, but to understand what you fear, what hurts you, what you are holding inside without telling anyone. It observes from behind your hurried thoughts and beneath the waves of emotions you cannot name. It knows when you need comfort, when you need a pause, when you need guidance that you cannot describe with words. Some people tell me they have never felt protected. But when they recall the times they slipped away from danger without explanation, the times intuition saved them from the wrong choice, I simply smile. Their guardian angel has been working since the days they were still in a cradle. Life has only made them think it was luck. I remember a woman named Emily, someone practical and even skeptical about anything spiritual. She stood at the edge of a major life decision, moving to a new city to start over. She was so worried she could not eat or sleep, afraid she would lose what she had built. One morning she woke with a calm she could not explain, as if someone had placed a warm blanket over her heart and said, "Go, everything will be all right." That feeling was strong enough for her to say yes to the new beginning. Years later, she told me it was the best decision of her life. She did not hear a clear voice or see any magical sign. She only felt a soft certainty rising from within. I explained that this is the language a guardian angel often uses, a kind of guidance that does not frighten but brings peace. In your life, you may have had similar moments. A feeling that you should stay away from someone. An intuition that you need rest, even when work is piling up. A sense that you should apologize before a relationship breaks. A quiet thought telling you to take another road. A memory returning at the right moment. None of these are random. They are the simple ways your higher inner wisdom says, "I am here with you." Modern life teaches us that everything must be backed by logic or evidence. But the most important things like love, peace, trust cannot be measured with the eyes or with formulas. Your inner guardian angel is the same. It appears through gentle certainty, through the calm in your chest, through silent guidance, and you will recognize it when you stop trying to explain everything. You never need to believe fully. You only need to open a small space in your mind to ask whether something has ever protected you. And if the answer is yes, then you have never been truly alone. I want to ask you something so you can listen to yourself. How many times in your life have you felt a small intuition leading you to something better or helping you avoid something harmful? And if right now you can remember even one moment like that, thank you for being here with me on this journey. The difference between fear and guidance: there are moments when you hear a small voice inside yourself and you do not know what to call it. Sometimes you feel hesitation or anxiety, and sometimes you feel a gentle certainty you cannot describe with words. In the busyness of life, these feelings are often ignored because you think they are just natural reactions of the mind. But when you look deeper, you will see two forces always moving inside you. One comes from fear, from old memories, from lessons that taught you to stay guarded. And one comes from a quiet place where your inner wisdom is always trying to guide you toward what is better. The difference between these two voices is the key to understanding how your inner guardian angel guides you each day in the simplest ways. I have spent many years observing the human mind, and the clearest thing I have seen is that we often mistake the voice of fear for the voice of intuition. Fear speaks loudly. It pushes you. It demands you decide immediately, as if something terrible is about to happen. But the voice of inner guidance is different. It is soft, like a breeze, yet it brings a peace your mind cannot easily reject. The difference in emotion is the sign you can rely on. One evening, Emma, an office worker living in Boston, told me she often felt short of breath whenever she faced an important decision. She believed it was because she was overly cautious. But one time during a crowded meeting, she suddenly felt a strange pull. It did not make her tense. It was simply a sense that she should step outside for a moment. She did not know why, but she followed it. A few minutes after she left the room, the electrical system above the ceiling failed and part of the ceiling fell. No one was badly injured, but Emma understood that if she had stayed, she would have been standing right under it. This is not a story meant to frighten you. It is a reminder that the wisdom within you always tries to protect you with very subtle signs. In Emma's case, the feeling she followed did not resemble anxiety. It was not fast or forceful or frightening. It was a quiet but certain feeling, and such feelings are always worth listening to. The conscious mind is like a guard at a gate. It is watchful but also easily scared. It checks everything, analyzes everything, questions everything, and often imagines terrible scenarios that do not exist. It wants to keep you safe because it remembers your past pain. But because of that, it often reacts too strongly. It tries to keep you safe by stopping you from taking any risk or leaving your comfort zone. Meanwhile, your inner wisdom, the part I call your guardian angel, works very differently. It never throws you into panic. It never forces you to run or hide. It simply opens a small door and gently says you can go this way. It does not argue. It does not try to sound powerful. But when you trust it, you see it is always right. I once worked with a man named Daniel, a construction engineer. He believed in numbers, formulas, and logic. Yet he had escaped dangerous situations more than once in ways science could not explain. One day at the construction site, he felt a wave of unease move through him. But it was not the usual stress from work. It was simply a feeling that he should stop drilling and take a few steps to the left. Less than a minute later, a loose steel frame fell exactly where he had been standing. When he told me about it, he said he did not hear any voice. He only felt he should move, and it felt right even without logic. What I want you to see is the difference. The voice of fear makes your heart tighten, your head heavy, your breath short. The voice of inner guidance makes you feel lighter, slower, and even though you do not understand why you feel, you can trust it. The higher subconscious always speaks through peace. Fear does not. Fear focuses on what you might lose. Intuition focuses on what you can keep. Fear makes you close yourself. Intuition helps you open. Fear pushes you to run. Intuition helps you walk with steadiness. When you see life this way, you begin to notice that your guardian angel inside is never loud. It does not force you to obey. It simply waits for you to pay attention to your true feelings. And the more you see the difference between the two voices, the easier it becomes to make choices that lighten your life instead of burdening it. But I know this is not easy, especially for those who have lived under pressure for a long time. When you are tired, your mind creates many overlapping voices, making it hard to tell what is wisdom and what is old fear. In those moments, the simplest way is to listen to your body. Anything that makes your chest expand, your breath slow, your body relax, is usually the voice of guidance. Anything that makes your heart tighten, makes you want to shut down, makes you hurry, is usually the voice of fear. The difference lives inside your body without the need for complex explanations. The more you listen to your body, the more clearly you hear the inner wisdom within you. There will be times when you follow your intuition and only later realize it protected you. There will be times when you ignore it and then understand you should have listened. That is all right. It is part of learning. The subconscious does not blame you. The guardian angel does not keep a record of mistakes. It simply guides again softly and patiently, as if it always knows you will return at the right moment. I want to ask you something small but important. In the past month, Was there a moment when you felt a quiet voice inside, but were not sure where it came from? And if there was, did that feeling bring peace or pressure to you? Thank you for taking the time to listen to yourself and for being here with me. Why we lose the sense of connection. There are moments when you feel you used to be sensitive to intuition, close to inner guidance, yet somehow that feeling has faded. You begin to doubt yourself, doubt the signals that were once clear, and finally accept that maybe it was all imagination. But you were not wrong to believe in those gentle moments like wind. Over time, the mind simply gathers too much noise. The connection never disappears, it only becomes covered. Each day you receive too much information, too many expectations, too many pressures that make your mind tight and crowded, like a room filled with furniture, with no space for anything new to enter. And then the most natural part of you, the part that knows how to listen to deep inner wisdom, gets pushed into a small corner. When you were young, you may have felt things very clearly. Children live closer to the subconscious than adults. They are not tangled in anxiety or calculation. They have no need to prove they are right. They trust what they feel without searching for reasons. That is why children often hear the voice of their inner world more clearly than grown-ups. But then you grew up, and society taught you to be rational, practical, and to live according to certain patterns. Every warning, every correction, every time someone laughed at your intuition or your sensitive perception added another layer of dust on the door of connection. I remember the story of Lily, a little girl I met years ago. Each night before sleep, Lily talked to an invisible friend she called the Light Friend. For her, it was not a game. It was how she listened to the peace inside. One night she told her mother she did not want to sleep in the bed by the window because it did not feel safe. Her mother agreed and moved the bed to the opposite side. Weeks later, the window shattered when a large branch broke during a stormy night. If her bed had stayed where it was, the consequences could have been serious. Yet when Lily spoke about the Light Friend, the adults dismissed it and told her she was imagining things. Over time, she became quiet and stopped speaking about her feelings. The voice did not disappear. It only moved further away. Like Lily, you may have had a natural sensitivity that faded under the fear of being judged or seen as vague or weak. Then you entered adult life with countless responsibilities. Work demands you to be fast. Family asks you to keep trying. Relationships push you to stay strong. There is no room left for delicate feelings. Your mind becomes crowded like a desk that has not been cleared for months. When the mind is too full, intuition has no space to speak. Not because it does not want to guide you, but because you can no longer hear it. There is also another reason we lose connection, the fear of being wrong. The subconscious speaks softly. Fear speaks loudly. When you fear being wrong, you chase the loud voice because it feels more certain, more solid, more obvious. Yet that very loudness is what pulls you away from your deeper wisdom. A man named Matthew once told me he could no longer hear his intuition because he always wondered, what if I am wrong? What if I am imagining? What if I disappoint someone? Those questions created fog in his mind, and when the mind becomes foggy, the inner light cannot shine through. We also lose connection because modern life makes quiet moments rare. You always carry your phone where notifications appear endlessly. Music, movies, social media schedules, lists of tasks. All of them make it almost impossible for your mind to rest and return inward. And when the mind has no space, even the softest signals pass by unnoticed. But the most important thing I want you to know is this: connection never disappears completely. No one loses the ability to hear inner guidance. It is a natural ability, the way the heart knows how to beat and the lungs know how to breathe. Even when you forget, it continues to work. Even when you do not hear it, it keeps sending signals. And the moment you clear a little noise inside, the moment you slow down, you will feel the presence return soft, steady, and deeply real. There is a simple practice. In a moment of confusion, place your hand on your chest and ask, does this make me open or does it make me close? The body always knows the truth before the mind. If your chest feels lighter, deeper, warmer, that is often a sign you are moving toward your inner wisdom. If it feels tight, rushed, heavy, that is usually the voice of fear. Just being able to tell these two apart means you have already walked half the journey back to connection. I know there was a moment in your life when you heard that voice clearly. Maybe it was before a big decision. Maybe it was when you were about to enter a place that felt unsafe. Maybe it was when you met someone new and felt a strong sense of trust or distrust. Those moments were not accidents. They were signals reminding you that the wisest part of you has never left. I want to ask you something so you can listen to your own heart. In recent times, have you felt a small signal from within that you chose to ignore? And if you did, what made you turn away from it? Thank you for being here, for making a little space in your mind to return to what has been waiting for you all along. Sowing the seeds within through many years of observing human life, I have realized something simple that people often forget. Every inner renewal begins with a moment of quiet. You can try to change your situation, your job, your lifestyle, but if you do not change the quiet space inside yourself, anything you build will be like placing a beautiful seed on soil that has not been cleared. It cannot grow. That is why I want to share with you something I learned from my own experience, not from books, but from the seasons when I felt lost, when I felt I could no longer hear the inner guidance I once trusted. There were times I was confused, just as you may have been, when the world was so loud that I lost the sense of myself. Then I discovered that the answer did not come from running faster, trying harder, or searching for direction from outside, but from pausing for a moment and turning inward. Imagine your mind as the surface of a large lake. When the winds of life blow strongly, the lake becomes full of waves. The reflections become distorted, and you cannot see what lies beneath. But when the water becomes still again, everything becomes clear. Inner guidance does not appear because you force yourself to see it. It appears when you allow the water inside you to grow calm. I began practicing short moments of silence each day, not to seek mystical experiences, but simply to return to my breathing. I sat down, relaxed my shoulders, closed my eyes, and allowed my breath to slow. In the first weeks, my mind kept running after familiar thoughts, unfinished tasks, and worries waiting to be solved. But I did not fight them. I let them pass, like leaves floating on the surface of water. And then one day, in the middle of that quiet, I felt something soft, a clarity I had not felt in a long time. It was like standing in a silent room and suddenly hearing a small sound that had always been there but hidden under the noise. When you slow down, the guidance of the subconscious begins to speak again. And I want you to know that you can experience this too, not because you are special, but because everyone has this ability. You only need a small space to begin. I remember guiding a man named William, someone successful, yet always tense and overwhelmed. He said his mind was always full of thoughts, as if 1,000 voices were speaking at once. I told him to sit quietly for 3 minutes a day and listen to his breath. He said it sounded too simple, but after 2 weeks he returned and told me he felt a change he had not expected. Not a giant change, but a sense that he was no longer drowning in his own thoughts. He said, "I do not know what to call it, but something inside me is softening." I explained that this was when the inner wisdom finally had space to speak. Stillness is the soil and guidance is the seed. Without the soil, the seed cannot grow. But when the soil is cleared, even a little guidance rises on its own. I also learned that stillness does not need long meditation or complicated techniques. It can come from everyday moments. When you walk slowly on a familiar road without looking at your phone, noticing each step and each breath. When you sit by a window and watch the light fall on your hand. When you pause before reacting to someone and ask yourself whether you are speaking from fear or from truth. Every such moment is a doorway for guidance. I want you to understand that preparing the mind is not an act of control but of release. The subconscious works best when you do not force it. When you chase answers, you rely on the conscious mind. When you soften, you open the door for inner wisdom. One evening, while I was searching for direction for a project I had been carrying for months, I felt completely drained. Every analysis only made things more tangled, so I stopped and breathed. In those few quiet minutes, something became clear. I needed to do less, but do it more deeply. The answer did not come from thinking, but from the feeling that I had not allowed myself to rest. And when I followed that guidance, everything became lighter and clearer. This is why I always say that guidance does not come from effort, it comes from willingness. You do not need to fight to hear the inner voice. You only need to clear some of the noise that blocks the way. And each day you can begin with small practices that make a powerful difference. You can take 2 minutes each morning to close your eyes and whisper to yourself that you allow your mind to open. You can take 1 minute before sleep to give thanks for another day in this body. You can take a few seconds anytime and place your hand on your chest and ask whether this brings you peace. I believe in simplicity because the subconscious responds best to simple and consistent acts. You do not need complexity. You do not need to push yourself. You only need to keep sowing small seeds and they will grow into unexpected change. And I want you to know that as you enter this journey of preparing your inner soil, you are not walking alone. Your guardian angel within has been waiting to work with you. When you make space, it speaks. When you open your heart, it guides. When you become quiet, you begin to notice the signals that have been there all along. Before we close this part, I want to invite you to do one small thing to show that you are ready for a new path. If you are listening and feel it is time to tend to your inner garden, leave a comment saying, "I am ready to change," or simply leave the number 1 so I know you are here with me. Rituals that restore the inner world when people feel disconnected from their inner guidance. They often think they must do something grand to find that connection again. But after years of listening, observing, and walking alongside many souls, I have learned that returning to oneself always begins with small and very ordinary actions. You do not need to climb a high mountain, seek mystical experiences, or change your entire life in one attempt. All you truly need is to create space for the inner wisdom to breathe, to speak, and to guide you in the most natural way. The rituals I share with you here are not mysterious. They are simple practices proven through the lives of thousands of people like you who once walked through anxiety, exhaustion, confusion, and the longing to reclaim the peace they thought they had lost forever. I want you to remember that the subconscious responds to repetition, to gentleness, and to gratitude. If you enter these rituals with pressure or unrealistic expectation, you may not feel their depth. But if you welcome them, like breaths, like slow pauses in a rushing life, you will be surprised at how you begin to shift from within. One of the most important rituals is prayer in its purest meaning. I am not speaking of religious formality, but of a sincere connection between you and the deep inner wisdom of your mind. True prayer is not begging or fear. It is a way of sending direction to the subconscious while opening a doorway for guidance to return. I often teach people to begin with a simple whisper. I listen. I open my heart. I allow the light within me to guide the way. These words are like small seeds, and the soil is your mind. When you speak with honesty, the subconscious understands the signal and begins to move in the direction you invite. And each time you repeat it, you are watering that seed, Along with prayer is the art of relaxation, something I believe everyone needs, because in a tense body the river of guidance cannot flow. Like a river blocked by stones, the subtle energy within you also becomes stuck. It needs softness to move. I often guide people through a simple relaxation process, moving from the feet to the head and gently telling each part of the body to release. You can close your eyes and imagine the breath as clear water, and each exhale washes away the tension gathered through the day. You do not need to imagine something extraordinary. Just allow your body to soften, and your mind will follow. And when the body and mind settle into that gentleness, guidance becomes clearer. A woman named Laura once told me she could not focus on anything because her mind jumped from thought to thought, and her body was always tight, like an overstretched string. I showed her 3 simple steps. Sit down, close your eyes, place your hand on your belly, and breathe slowly. At first she felt nothing but discomfort, but after a few sessions she began to feel layers of tension melt away. Only then did she realize how long she had abandoned her own sense of peace. Another ritual I always encourage is writing. You do not write to find answers right away, but to create a dialogue with yourself. When you write down what weighs on you, you are telling the subconscious that you are ready to release what has been pressing on your heart. And when you write down what you are grateful for, even something tiny like morning sunlight or a smile, you happen to see you are restoring the signal of peace to the subconscious. The subconscious responds to what you repeat, and if you repeat gratitude, you begin to shift your entire emotional landscape towards softness. I once met a man named David, someone strong on the outside yet carrying deep wounds inside. He could not understand why life always led him to a feeling of being lost. When I suggested he write down what he felt each morning, he doubted it. But he tried, and within a week he told me something inside him had begun to move. He wrote about fear, anger, the wish to begin again. And through that writing he realized something he had never seen, that he was not hopeless. His subconscious had begun to answer not with words, but with a quiet relief rising in his chest. These rituals are simple yet powerful because they bring you back to yourself. The world outside demands speed, strength, achievement. But these rituals invite you to slow down, soften, and return to your own heart. And when you do so, you create the conditions for the inner guardian to communicate with you clearly. Some people say they do not know where to begin, that they have lived under pressure for too long. I want you to know you do not need to begin perfectly. Begin with one small moment, one slow breath, one gentle prayer, one simple sentence written down. Then those small acts will grow into the transformation you have been longing for. When you practice consistently, even for a few minutes each day, you will feel lighter, clearer, and softer. These are signs that the layers of life are falling away, leaving space for guidance to appear. These rituals are not meant to turn you into someone else. They simply help you return to your true self, someone who has always been whole, but momentarily forgot the richness within. And once you return to who you already are, the light within you will begin to speak. It never left you. It was only waiting for you to open the door. The night question, the second doorway of wisdom. There are moments in life when you try very hard to find an answer, yet the more you think, the more tangled everything becomes. You calculate every possibility, consider every direction, listen to advice from many people, and still something inside feels unsettled. You lie down to rest, but the mind keeps running like a machine without an off switch. And in these moments, you easily forget that there is a deeper wisdom waiting for you to stop thinking so it can speak. The subconscious does not work with the urgency of the conscious mind. It needs stillness. It needs space to offer answers in its own way. And one of the most powerful times for the subconscious to work is right before you fall asleep. I call this the second doorway of wisdom. When your conscious mind is tired, it loosens its grip on logic. When your body relaxes, layers of tension begin to fall away. Only then can the subconscious receive your question fully. The night question is a simple ritual, yet it carries the ability to guide you toward the clarity you have been chasing all day. Let me tell you about Hannah, an elementary school teacher in Ohio. She was devoted to her work, but she had been wrestling with a decision about a new opportunity in another city. Her hesitation was not about her career, but the fear of leaving her family and the familiar place she had known since childhood. For weeks, she tried to think her way into a solution, but the more she thought, the more she feared making a mistake. One night she remembered a method I once shared that, before sleeping, you can send your question to the subconscious like planting a seed and letting it grow in the dark. That evening she placed her hand on her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Please show me the choice that brings true peace." She did not force an image or wait for a sign. She simply sent the question inward like a letter addressed to a wisdom waiting inside her. And then she slept. The next morning, she woke with a clear feeling, not excitement, not a strong certainty, but a gentle lightness. In her sleep, she had no strange dreams, no vivid visions, only the sense that someone had placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "You can go, and everything will be all right." Hannah was not someone who made decisions easily, but this time she felt no hesitation. She knew the feeling did not come from a temporary rush of emotion, but from a deep peace. And she followed it. Months later, settled in her new city, she told me she had never made a decision that felt so natural. She realized the night question allowed her subconscious to speak for the truths she could not hear during the day. The subconscious is a part of your mind that never stops working. It does not tire, it does not judge, it does not panic. It is not pressured by time or fear. And for that reason, when you entrust your question to it, it processes it in ways the conscious mind cannot. To make the night question work, you do not need a complicated ritual. You only need 3 elements: stillness, trust, and release. Stillness is not only turning off the noise outside, but allowing yourself to breathe deeper, soften a little, and admit that you do not have to force an answer. Trust does not mean blind belief or mystical certainty. It simply means opening to the possibility that tomorrow's answer may be different from what you expect. Release means you do not demand an answer immediately. The subconscious responds to gentleness. It does not open under pressure. It speaks when you give it freedom. And you must remember that its answer does not always come through dreams. Sometimes you wake feeling a weight has lifted. Sometimes a thought appears while you are making coffee. Sometimes a story you overhear reveals what you had been searching for. The subconscious does not use logic. It uses feelings, images, gentle certainty, and moments you cannot explain, yet you know they are true. I once worked with a man named Charles, someone skilled in data analysis, but overwhelmed when facing a major career decision. He tried everything to think his way to clarity, but the harder he tried, the more anxious he became. One night I guided him to place a clear question into his subconscious before sleep. He did this for 3 nights. The first night, he slept poorly. The second night, he felt more relaxed. The third night, he dreamed of 2 roads, one flat and dim, one slightly uphill but filled with sunlight. When he got out of bed the next morning, he said he knew which road to take. Not because the dream forced him to choose, but because the dream reflected a truth he had known, but had not dared to accept. The subconscious always knows before the conscious mind agrees. The night question is how you take what you cannot yet say and place it into the deepest part of your mind so it can become a seed. And through sleep, when the conscious mind is silent, that seed is shaped into clarity. If you want to practice, start by choosing one clear question before bed. Do not choose something too large. Choose the question that weighs on you most. Then close your eyes, breathe softly, and whisper, "I send this question to the light within me. Please guide my steps." After that, let sleep do the rest. You cannot force a seed to grow in one night, but if you water it gently each evening, it will rise at the right moment. And when the answer comes, it will not push or pressure you. It will bring a quiet peace that feels as if it has lived inside you all along, simply waiting for you to become still enough to hear it. When the hand moves before the mind, there are things in life that cannot be opened by thinking alone. You can analyze every emotion, break down every problem, try to find answers through logic. Yet the more you try, the more you feel trapped. Because some answers do not belong to the loud conscious mind, but to something deeper and more delicate, a place where the subconscious holds truths you have not yet touched. Writing is one of the gentlest paths that lead you there. Not writing to impress, not writing to be logical or perfect, but writing as if you are opening a doorway inside the mind. When you let the hand move before the mind, you allow the subconscious to speak the things your conscious self usually hides or suppresses. I have met many people who believe they cannot write, or who see writing as a skill that requires strict structure. But the truth is, when you write the most honest lines, you are not writing with technique. You are writing with the light within you. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was a strong woman who carried a quiet anger toward her father, who had been too strict during her childhood. She grew up, she succeeded. She became independent, yet every time she faced her father, something tightened inside her, and she did not understand why. One day she came to me saying she wanted to know why she reacted so strongly to small comments from him. I suggested she try something simple. Sit down, pick up a pen, and write whatever appeared in her heart, without editing, without control, without judgment. I told her that free writing is not about creating a complete story, but opening a path for the forgotten parts of the mind. On the first day, she wrote only a few scattered sentences. She said it felt meaningless, but I encouraged her to continue. By the third day, her hand suddenly moved quickly, as if a long blocked river had found its flow. She wrote about her childhood, about moments she felt misunderstood, about her fear of never being good enough. Things she had never spoken out loud appeared on the page. When she read them, she did not cry because of pain, but because she realized she had carried these things for years without ever allowing herself to express them. Writing had helped her enter a conversation with the deepest part of her heart. From that moment, she began to look at her father with softer eyes and a clearer understanding that her wounds were not something she needed to hide forever. Writing is how the subconscious whispers. When you do not try to control the words, you allow the inner wisdom to guide your hand. Many people are surprised to write things they never consciously knew, answers they thought they did not have. But the subconscious knows. The hand knows. You simply have not let it lead before. I always tell those beginning this journey to create a safe space for writing. It does not have to be beautiful or perfect. It only needs to feel safe. A corner of a desk, a chair by a window, a simple notebook. When you write in a safe space, the subconscious opens. You also need a gentle intention. Not to protect yourself from something bad, but to let your mind know you want to hear the inner light, not the noise of fear. You can whisper, "I allow the light within me to speak, only gentleness and understanding may pass through my hand." When you write, you do not need to search for meaning. Sometimes the lines will be messy, repetitive, or unclear. But that does not matter. The meaning is not in the structure of the words, but in the flow you are allowing. Like a stream passing over stones, the first lines loosen what has been stuck inside you. And the more you write, the clearer the water becomes. Many ask me how they can know whether free writing is guidance or imagination. I tell them the subconscious always speaks through peace. When you write and you feel lighter, when you no longer feel judged by your own words, when you sense even a small opening inside that is guidance. Imagination creates tension. The subconscious creates clarity. That is the simplest difference. I once worked with a man named Richard, successful yet stuck in his relationship. Whenever he thought about the future, he felt torn between his true desire and his fear of being hurt. I asked him to write each night for 10 minutes. At first, he wrote like someone taking notes, very logical. But one evening, after a few lines, he suddenly wrote, "I am not afraid of losing her. I am afraid of losing myself." When he read it, he sat in silence for a long time because it was something he had never dared to admit. The words came from his subconscious, from the part of him that understood his pain better than he did. Only then could he make a choice, based not on fear, but on truth. Free writing is not a mystical ritual. It is simply letting what has been suppressed step into the light. The most important rule is not to judge anything that comes out. Judgment closes the door. Let everything be written in safety. The subconscious only answers when it knows you will listen without punishing yourself. When you continue the habit for days, weeks, or months, you will notice yourself changing. Not because you are trying to change, but because you understand yourself more. And when you understand yourself, guidance becomes easier to hear. Writing is a conversation between you and the light within you, and each line is a step deeper into the place where your wisdom has been waiting for you all along. The language of the universe there are moments when you pause in the middle of a busy life and wonder whether the things that keep repeating themselves hold any meaning at all. The numbers you see again and again in a single day, the song that appears at the perfect moment, the sentence someone casually says, or the encounter that seems random yet makes your heart tremble in a strange way. You once believed these were coincidences, but when life keeps sending more of them, you begin to feel that something is trying to speak to you. The universe does not communicate the way humans do. It speaks through coincidence, through feeling, through symbols that only someone awake on the inside can recognize. And it is the deep inner wisdom within you, the part I call your guardian angel, that acts as the bridge between you and these signs. It recognizes in an instant what is meant for you and what is not. It reflects that knowing back to you through small signals like little lights along a path, reminding you that you were never lost. I once worked with a nurse named Anna in Minnesota. She was facing an important decision, whether to leave her current hospital for a new opportunity or stay in the familiar place that had begun to drain her. She was so unsettled she could barely sleep. One day, as she walked home, a white butterfly landed on her hand and stayed there for several moments. It moved her deeply, and she did not know why. But in the following days, she kept seeing white butterflies everywhere: on a colleague's book cover, a poster in a cafe, even on a birthday card someone sent her. She felt something was calling her attention. When she told me, I asked what feeling arose each time she saw the image. Anna said she felt lighter, as if the weight on her chest softened. I told her that inner guidance always carries a sense of expansion. If a sign brings peace, it is not imagination. It is a form of language the universe uses to gently touch your heart. For Anna, the white butterfly was a reminder that she needed transformation, just like a butterfly born through metamorphosis. And when she followed that sign, she received the new job she had wished for in a kinder and more supportive environment. She told me that if she had ignored those signs, she would have spent years more in exhaustion. The universe never forces you. It only suggests. It does not demand your belief. It only invites you to soften, to notice, and to pay attention to what makes your heart open rather than tighten. A man named James once told me that he kept seeing the image of a bird in the days when his heart felt heavy about his struggling marriage. He saw it on traffic signs, paintings at work, even in his dreams. Each time he saw it, he felt something deep, a longing for freedom, breath, and honesty with himself after months of silence and hurt. James did not want to break his family apart. He wanted to return to honesty. And when he listened to his true feeling, he realized he did not need to walk away. He needed to speak. The image of the bird was a whisper telling him he had stayed caged long enough, and it was time to open a window inside himself. When he did, his marriage did not break. It healed. He told me that without those signs, he would have remained silent for years. The language of the universe works through meaningful coincidence. If you treat every sign as random, you miss its value. But if you look with intuition, you will feel that each sign carries an emotional tone. Logic cannot explain it, but the heart recognizes it instantly. Some signs come to comfort you like a familiar melody playing at the moment you need calm. Some signs warn you like a sudden chill when you are about to rush into something unwise. Some signs encourage you like an unexpected message from an old friend on the very day you want to give up. I once guided a woman named Michelle to create a notebook for recording meaningful coincidences in her life. Within a month, she wrote down more than 30 events. When she reread them, she noticed each sign matched her emotional state at that time. On sad days, signs came to soothe. On confused days, signs came to clarify. On fearful days, signs came to help her stand firm. What showed me these were not meaningless coincidences was the simple truth that each sign brought her more clarity, more peace, or more awareness. The subconscious does not speak through panic. It speaks through gentleness. And when you learn to observe that gentleness, you become like someone following small pieces of light placed along a path the universe shaped just for you. The language of the universe does not require blind belief. It only asks for presence. And when you are present, you begin to see that life has been trying to speak to you in every way it can. Through a road you suddenly choose. Through words you notice on a sign. Through a chance encounter. Through a memory that returns unexpectedly. All of these are ways the inner wisdom tries to guide you back to your true direction. Before we close this part, I want to ask you something softly. In recent days, has there been a sign that appeared again and again and made your heart stir? If so, that is not coincidence. And thank you for being here listening to yourself through these stories. Interpreting the language of signs in life, there are moments when a sign appears again and again until you pause and wonder whether life is trying to tell you something. Even when you believe a message is being sent from within or from beyond, you may still ask yourself how to know its true meaning. Sometimes you worry that you are imagining too much. Sometimes you fear that if you interpret the sign incorrectly, you might make the wrong choice. Just like when you hear a new language for the first time, you cannot understand it from one single encounter. But if you are patient and quiet enough, you begin to sense the spirit of that language. Signs in life work in the same way. They do not ask you to analyze them immediately. They only ask you to slow down and listen. And when you observe in stillness, their meaning naturally becomes clearer. The first thing I want you to remember when learning the language of signs is the feeling that comes with them. The subconscious never sends messages through panic or urgency. It speaks through gentle sensations, soft movements inside you, like someone placing a hand on your shoulder and whispering, "Look closer." When a sign appears and brings peace, expansion, or a tender sense of recognition, treat it as the subconscious saying, "This matters to you." I remember a woman named Olivia who was going through a painful season in her marriage. Each day she felt a quiet distance growing between her and her partner. She tried talking, tried changing herself, tried holding on to what she believed was her responsibility. But the more she tried, the smaller she felt. One evening, while driving home after a long day, she let the radio play at random. For 3 days in a row, the same old song from her youth came on, at the moment she felt weakest. It was the song that reminded her of who she had been before marriage, when she still knew what she wanted, when she was full of energy and inner freedom. Each time the song played, she cried not from sadness, but from the feeling that something inside her was being remembered. That song was a sign. There was no miracle in it, just a coincidence filled with meaning. What mattered most was the feeling it awakened. The subconscious was reminding her that her truth had been buried under the fear of disappointing others. Besides feeling, the second thing to notice is repetition. A sign appearing once may be random, but when it appears 3 times in different situations within a few days, it is often the subconscious trying to guide you back to your path. A man named Ethan once told me about a period when he was unsure whether to continue a new business project or stop. He read books, asked friends, analyzed risks, yet everything felt unclear. One day, while walking through a park, he saw a billboard with the words "Keep Moving." He barely noticed it. A few days later, he saw the same words on a shirt worn by someone in front of a cafe. On the third day, while watching a sports video, the phrase "keep moving" appeared again at the exact moment he was thinking about quitting. 3 appearances in 1 week, all during his confusion. He realized it was not just a phrase. It was his subconscious reflecting his inner truth. Each time he saw it, he felt warmth in his chest. And he continued. By the end of the year, the project brought a result beyond anything he expected. The language of signs is not always as clear as a direct answer. Sometimes it is subtle and requires you to look at the whole picture rather than fixating on one detail. When a sign appears, do not ask immediately what it means. Ask instead, why is this appearing now? Life always sends messages at the moment you need them most, not the moment you wish for them. When a sound, image, number, or face appears in sync with your emotions, that is the moment to listen deeply. And this listening belongs to the heart, not the mind. One of the most effective ways to interpret signs is to write down what you feel the moment they appear. In that moment, the subconscious is open and pushing the message toward the surface of awareness. If you wait too long, clarity fades. I often tell people to record the first feeling because the first feeling is always the truest. The mind steps in after a few minutes, causing doubt or dismissing everything as coincidence. The subconscious does not use signs to confuse you. It uses them to open you. So the right interpretation is always the one that makes your heart feel more spacious, not more tense. If a sign weighs you down, pretending to be guidance. If it brings even a small amount of light, it is a true sign. Some people, when they begin noticing signs, become too eager to find meaning in everything and end up feeling overwhelmed. But remember, signs do not want you to be afraid or to overanalyze. They want you to be a little more awake, a little more open, a little more gentle with yourself. That is why true signs always come with peace. If you want to interpret the language of signs in the simplest way, you can begin with 3 steps. Step 1, notice the first feeling. Step 2, observe the repetition. Step 3, write it in your journal. When you do this for a few days or weeks, you will begin to see threads connecting your signs to your emotions. And when those threads become visible, you will understand that life has never been silent with you. It was only waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear. The voices within. Through many years of observing the human mind, what has always stayed with me is not what people do, but the quiet conversations happening inside them. Rarely does someone walk through life with a silent mind. Inside each person there are voices. Some voices lift you up. Some pull you into doubt. Some reflect old fears like mirrors, and some are soft, like a hand on your shoulder reminding you to breathe. Understanding these voices is understanding the way you are guiding your own life. The conscious mind and the subconscious work like two floors of the same house. The conscious mind is the upstairs floor, always lit, always busy, always speaking loudly. The subconscious is the lower floor where the deepest truths are stored and where the voice of inner wisdom never disappears, even though it is quiet. But before you can hear that wisdom, you must learn to tell it apart from the other voices, the ones shaped by the past, by fears, by wounds that have not yet healed. I remember a woman named Claire, kind and compassionate, yet always feeling she was not good enough. Whenever she faced a new opportunity, a familiar voice rose up inside her, saying, "Do you deserve this? Will you fail? What will others think?" That voice was always fast, always urgent, always shrinking her. When she told me, I said gently, "That is not wisdom. That is the echo of old experiences, old criticism from childhood, the fear of judgment you have carried for too long." The critical self speaks this way. It is loud. It uses hard words. It puts you in a defensive posture. It keeps you from moving forward because it convinces you that you will fail before you even begin. But the important truth is that this critical voice is not reality. It is a reflection of what you repeated long enough to believe. The subconscious simply mirrors what you once accepted as truth. Alongside the critical voice is the anxious voice. It is not as loud, but far more persistent. It tightens your chest. It shortens your breath. It constantly asks, "What if this goes wrong? What if everything falls apart? What if you are not strong enough?" I once worked with a man named Lucas, who imagined endless worst-case scenarios, even when nothing had happened. He said he did it to prepare himself, but in truth, he was letting the voice of anxiety guide him. Anxiety never leads you to wisdom. It only drags you into twisting paths that make you forget your direction. But among all these voices, there is always another one. And this is the voice I want you to learn to recognize. The voice of inner guidance, the voice of the wisdom I call your inner guardian angel. This voice never rushes. It does not speak loudly. It does not argue. It does not pressure you to act immediately. It speaks gently, calmly, as if it has always known the answer and is simply waiting for you to become quiet enough to hear. A man named Mark once told me he lived with two feelings. One feeling made him panic when making decisions. The other slowed his breath and created a soft expansion in his chest. At first he could not tell them apart, but when he learned to observe the feeling attached to each voice, he realized the tightness was anxiety and the ease was guidance. When he began trusting the gentle voice, his life became much clearer. The wise voice has one quality no other voice has. It never makes you feel small. It does not threaten you. It does not tell you that you will fail. It does not push you to hide. It simply points you toward the path that fits you best. Sometimes it says, "Move forward." Sometimes it says, "Wait." Sometimes it says, "Walk away." And each time it speaks, you feel something special, a quiet rightness you cannot explain. You do not know why, but you know it is what you need to do. The voice of wisdom speaks through the body. The body knows before the mind does. When you hear the right voice, your breath deepens. Your chest expands. Your shoulders soften. Sometimes your whole being feels like it has let go of a weight you did not know you were carrying. These are signals from the subconscious. You only need to learn to notice them. I remember speaking with a young woman named Grace. During an important conversation with her partner, she felt a gentle sense of calm when she imagined telling the truth about her feelings. That feeling steadied her. It was not fear, but soon after the anxious voice rose up saying, she should stay quiet because things might get worse. She hesitated, then chose to trust the first voice. And something beautiful happened. The conversation brought a closeness she had not believed possible. Because the voice of wisdom never leads you toward harm. It leads you toward truth, and truth always heals. One way to practice recognizing the voices in your mind is to pause for a few seconds before making a decision. Not long, just enough to listen to your body. If your body tightens, it is fear. If your body opens, it is wisdom. You can sense it in your breath, your heartbeat, your belly. Everything speaks when you learn to listen. Some people say they cannot hear the voice of wisdom, but that is not true. They hear it, but they do not trust it. They are used to listening to the louder voice even when that voice comes from old fears. The true voice is often soft, so soft you must slow down to feel it. If you give yourself even a little quiet time each day, you will notice that this voice becomes clearer, stronger, and more trustworthy than any other. The beautiful thing about the voice of inner wisdom is that you do not need to search for it far away. It lives in every breath, every heartbeat, every moment you choose courage over fear. And when you open that door, your life becomes lighter, brighter, and more real. Silent protection. There are moments in life you cannot explain with logic, moments that seem ordinary yet carry an invisible force that gently pulls you away from danger. You might think it is instinct, luck, or coincidence. But when these moments repeat, when they appear exactly at the times you need them most, you begin to wonder if something has been watching over you. I have met hundreds of people who shared stories they never dared to tell anyone else for fear of sounding superstitious. Yet every story carried the same feeling, the sense that a light but steady force had pulled them out of harm. I call this force the silent protection of the subconscious, the part of your inner wisdom that sees further than your eyes, stays connected to the rhythm of life and senses what is coming long before your conscious mind can catch up. I still remember Jennifer, a woman living in Seattle. One weekend night after working late, she drove home on her usual route. The road was calm, the weather ordinary, nothing seemed unusual. But as she approached a quiet intersection, she felt a sudden, strong sensation urging her to slow down even though she had been driving normally. She did not hear a voice, nor did she see a sign. She simply felt she had to slow. Seconds later, another car shot across the intersection at high speed, passing exactly where she would have been. Jennifer stopped the car, her hands trembling. She knew that sensation had saved her. Not fear, but a gentle yet firm intuition, like an unseen hand steadying her in that crucial moment. There was also Robert, a small business owner about to sign a major contract he believed would change his life. Everything seemed perfect, the partner friendly, the numbers appealing. But on the morning he prepared to sign, a heavy feeling settled on his chest. Not ordinary nervousness, but a solid weight, as if someone had placed a stone over his heart. He did not understand it, but it held him still. He paused the process for 2 days. In that time, he discovered hidden issues his partner had not mentioned. Had he signed that day, his finances could have been put at severe risk. Robert told me that feeling was not from logic, because logic had been blinded by excitement. It came from a deeper place, where wisdom warns in ways words cannot. Silent protection is not magic or a supernatural ability. It is the natural intelligence of the mind, the same way the heart knows how to beat and the lungs know how to breathe. The subconscious reads subtle cues the conscious mind misses, whether small changes in the environment or delicate signals in the body. When you feel a pull, a pause, or a sensation, you cannot explain it, often comes from the inner wisdom trying to lead you away from danger. One important quality of silent protection is that it always arrives as a gentle but firm nudge. It never pushes you into panic. It never creates urgency. It simply gives you a clear feeling of what you must do in that exact moment. And if you listen, you will sense the difference between guidance and fear. Fear tightens the body. Wisdom makes the body pause and listen. Kevin, another man I met, told me he never believed in intuition until something happened. One morning, he prepared to drive his daughter to school. As they got into the car, he felt a sudden urge to check the rear tire. He did not know why, but he could not ignore it. When he bent down, he found a large nail stuck in the tire. At the repair shop, the mechanic said the tire could have blown on the highway. Kevin hugged his daughter, knowing that the quiet urge he felt had protected them in a way he could not deny. When you open yourself to this silent protection, you begin to feel that you are held more than you realize. Life is not always easy, but there is always a soft guidance walking beside you. It does not remove challenges, but it prevents unnecessary harm and keeps you from stepping into situations that could deeply affect you. The key to connecting with this protection is learning to distinguish fear from wisdom. Fear makes the mind race. Wisdom makes the mind pause. Fear imagines endless bad outcomes. Wisdom clarifies the one action you must take right now. Fear speeds up the heartbeat. Wisdom steadies it. When you sense these differences, you begin to recognize the voice of silent protection. A simple way to notice it is to give your body a few seconds whenever something feels unusual. The body knows before the mind. If you suddenly feel heavy or sense a pull, stopping you, do not ignore it. It may be the subconscious pulling you away from something you cannot yet see. I remember Melissa, a woman who one night walked home after exercising. She felt a strange sensation, as if someone was watching her. She did not panic, but the feeling made her turn into a nearby store instead of continuing down a dark path. Minutes later, the police arrested a man in the exact area she had planned to walk through. Melissa said she heard no voice at all. She just felt something her body could not dismiss. That feeling kept her safe. Stories like these are not rare. What matters is the truth behind them, that you too have this ability. You have felt it many times in your life. Sometimes you were distracted. Sometimes you did not trust yourself. When you begin trusting this protection, you do not become fearful. You become quietly aware, like someone listening to a familiar melody, guiding each step. Silent protection does not come from outside. It rises from the deepest part of you, where wisdom and peace meet. And when you work with it, your life becomes safer, not because challenges disappear, but because you no longer walk alone in the dark. When life speaks through crossroads, there are moments when you must make a big decision, and it feels as if your whole future is balanced on the tip of a needle. You think through every possibility, you ask for advice, you gather information, you analyze with logic. But the more you analyze, the more tangled you feel. Because the choices that shape your life are rarely unlocked by calculation. They are unlocked by inner clarity. And inner clarity does not come from the loud voice in your mind, but from the quiet wisdom beneath it. I have met many people who believed they were choosing with their conscious mind, when in truth they were choosing out of fear or out of old habits. That is why crossroads feel exhausting. Not because the choice is hard, but because they are trying to make an important decision using only a small part of their mind, while the stronger and wiser part, the subconscious, is quietly waiting behind them for a moment of stillness. Daniel came to me at a time when he had to decide whether to choose a new career path. He had worked in finance for more than 10 years. The salary was high, the position stable, but every morning he felt as if he were walking down a road that did not belong to him. When an opportunity appeared in education, he felt both drawn and afraid. Logic told him leaving stability was foolish. His heart whispered he needed meaning again. He stood between two forces pulling him in opposite directions. When he shared his story, I did not ask what he wanted. I asked what he felt when he imagined each choice. And the first thing he noticed was that imagining his old job made his chest heavy, as if a stone had been placed on it. But when he imagined a new job, his breath deepened, his shoulders softened, and he felt a warm current spreading through him. He said he did not know what that meant, but I did. His body was speaking the truth before his mind was willing to admit it. The subconscious delivers truth earlier than the conscious mind. That is why when you face a major choice, you cannot rely only on benefits or risks. You must also rely on feeling. Feeling is the language of the subconscious. When you feel expansion, it is a sign of rightness. When you feel contraction, it is a sign of misalignment. This is not mystical. It is simply how the body responds to truth. I also remember Emily, a teacher who had worked many years at the same school, but felt increasingly disconnected. A new opportunity arose in a non-profit organization helping vulnerable children. She wanted to go, yet she feared she might not be capable. She struggled for weeks until she sat with me. I asked her to imagine each choice and observe her body. When she imagined staying, she felt tired, as if walking backward into an old shadow. When she imagined moving into the new role, tears fell, not from sadness, but from recognition. The tears were her truth rising to the surface. She did not need more advice. Her body had spoken. When you stand at a crossroads, your inner wisdom always speaks. But to hear it, you must be still enough to tell apart the voice of fear and the voice of truth. Fear wants safety. Truth wants alignment. Fear warns you about failure. Truth calls you toward the life your heart already knows. Fear shouts. Truth whispers. But the whisper carries a strange strength, a strength that creates calm even when the path ahead is unclear. There is a technique I have taught many people facing important decisions. I call it the 3-day view. For 3 days, you do not force a choice. You simply observe your body every time you think of each option. On the first day, your reactions come from habit and fear. On the second day, the fear loosens. On the third day, the subconscious speaks most clearly. You will notice that one option makes your breath lighter and one makes it heavier. When you see that you know your path without needing to justify it. A man named Charles practiced this when deciding whether to leave the city and move closer to his aging parents. On the first day, he felt anxiety at the thought of leaving his familiar life. On the second day, he felt torn between duty and personal comfort. But on the third day, as he sat quietly in his small kitchen, imagining a return home, a warm peace spread through him like water. He said it felt like placing a stone back into its rightful place. That was the voice of truth. Life brings you to your crossroads in gentle ways. No noise, no pressure, no demands. Only small movements in the heart, subtle shifts in the body, thoughts that arrive with a different energy. And if you are calm enough to notice, you will see that you have never walked alone. Your subconscious has always guided you through a language you once knew well but forgot in the rush of living. The truth is, you do not need a life without difficult choices. You only need a mind steady enough and a heart open enough to hear your own wisdom. When you can do that, even the biggest decisions feel lighter. Because you no longer ask, "What if I am wrong?" You begin to ask, "What brings me the most peace?" And that question will always lead you to the path meant for you. Layers of clouds that hide your guidance. There are seasons in life when you try to listen, try to connect, try to find an inner direction, yet everything feels dim. You meditate, but the mind will not settle. You pray, but feel empty. You look for a sign, but life seems silent. In moments like these, the first thing you must understand is that you have not been abandoned. Your guidance has never disappeared. There are simply clouds covering the inner sky, keeping the light from breaking through. These clouds do not come from outside. They come from quiet layers of psychology you may have carried for years without noticing. Old doubts, unhealed wounds, experiences that taught you you were not worthy of guidance, fears that if you trust your inner voice, you will make a mistake. And sometimes the pressure to hear too quickly or too clearly becomes the very wall blocking the truth. I once spoke with a woman named Laura, who felt she could never hear her intuition. She meditated every day, wrote in her journal each night, did everything she believed would bring her closer to her inner wisdom. But the more she tried, the more exhausted she felt. When I asked why, she said she feared she was not good enough to be guided. Those words told me everything. She was hearing something. She simply did not believe the guidance belonged to her. That belief became a curtain that dimmed every ray of light. Matthew, on the other hand, dealt with the opposite pattern. He trusted his intuition so much that he tried to force answers from his subconscious. If he asked a question and did not hear something within minutes, he panicked. He demanded clarity instantly. But urgency itself became noise. It drowned the genuine voice of wisdom. I told him the subconscious does not respond to pressure. It does not move to the rhythm of impatience. It responds when you soften, when the tension loosens and the expectations open. Many people do not realize that inner guidance is not blocked because you lack ability. It is blocked because the mind is too full. The inner voice is soft, like a raindrop falling into a still pond. If the surface is stormy, you cannot see the ripple. But if the water is calm, even one drop reveals its pattern. There are three forces that often form the clouds hiding your guidance. The first is self-judgment. When you tell yourself that you are not good enough, not worthy enough, not spiritually pure enough to receive guidance, you are closing the door yourself. The subconscious responds to your belief about yourself. If you believe you are unworthy, you will not allow the signal in even when it is right in front of you. I often remind people that guidance is not reserved for the perfect. It is for everyone, including those who are confused, afraid, or weary. You do not need to become someone else to be guided. You only need to be yourself. The second is the fear of making mistakes. Many people hesitate to trust their inner voice because they fear that if they follow it and fail, they will blame themselves forever. But guidance is not a promise that every choice will be flawless. It is simply a direction leading you closer to your truth. And often even the wrong turns bring you to the right place. So the silence you feel is not the absence of wisdom. It is the absence of courage to listen. The third is mental noise. Noise not only from work or life, but from the endless inner dialogue you may not even notice. The noise of worry, the noise of control, the noise of constant expectations. All of it forms a thick layer of cloud. In this case, you do not need to listen harder. You need to soften to lower the volume of everything inside you. When you create space, guidance naturally returns. A woman named Helen once came to me after a major crisis. She felt lost and disconnected. She tried to look for signs, but nothing spoke. When we sat together, I asked her to do nothing. I told her to sit quietly, place her hand over her heart and breathe. At first, she resisted the silence because she was afraid of what she might feel. But as she breathed longer, she noticed something she had not seen in months, a deep exhaustion, a sadness she had never allowed herself to acknowledge. And I told her that sometimes guidance does not come because you are not ready for the answer. You need healing so that when the answer comes, you do not use it as an escape. Some clouds clear only when you rest. Some clear only when you forgive yourself. Some clear only when you admit that you are hurting. And once the clouds dissolve, guidance does not require effort. It reveals itself just as the sun does not need your permission to rise. It only needs a clear sky. So when you feel guidance has vanished, do not panic. Do not assume you have failed. Do not conclude you are unworthy. See it instead as a sign that you need a quiet return to yourself. And that quietness will open the path for what you have been seeking. Before we close this chapter, I want to ask you a gentle question. In these recent days, is there a cloud covering your inner guidance? And if so, what shape does it take? Thank you for being here and letting your heart soften as you read these words. Unlocking the knots in the mind, there are moments when you try so hard to listen, to connect, to welcome the guidance within, yet the only thing you feel is a kind of blockage. It is as if an invisible knot in your mind makes every signal heavy. You feel stuck, unable to move forward or backward, unsure of what is truly wrong. And that uncertainty makes you wonder if you are doing something incorrectly. But the truth is gentler than that. You are not doing anything wrong. You are simply touching a deep knot in your mind, a place that holds everything you have avoided for years. A mental knot is never formed in just a day or two. It is built from layers of emotions you have been carrying for a long time. Old worries, limiting beliefs, the fear of being judged, feelings you never processed, words you once heard and thought you had forgotten, yet they still echo as faint sounds whenever you try to move forward. When a knot appears, the subconscious cannot respond clearly because there is no space for light to pass through. All you feel is heaviness, fatigue, and sometimes a sense of directionlessness. I once worked with a man named Jonathan. He was intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply committed to personal growth. But whenever he faced important decisions, his mind felt pulled back. He said he did not understand why he felt confused, even when the answer seemed clear. As we explored deeper, I realized he carried an old belief from childhood. He grew up in an environment where every mistake was considered a severe failure. So each time he had to choose, his subconscious reacted not to the present, but to the memories, the harsh voices he had heard as a child. And that created the knot that blocked his ability to hear his true inner voice. A mental knot can come from the fear of being hurt. I remember a woman named Margaret who had carried the pain of betrayal for many years. When she entered a new relationship, everything seemed good, yet she felt anxious whenever something was unclear. Not because the situation was dangerous, but because old memories resurfaced and shaped her assumptions in a negative way. Whenever her intuition tried to bring calmness, the fear she had held for too long interrupted and distorted the message. She said she no longer trusted her intuition. But I told her that her intuition had not disappeared. It was only covered by fear. When a knot appears, remember that the subconscious is not working against you. It is trying to protect you based on what it believes to be true. If you were hurt before, it holds you back to prevent more pain. If you were criticized, it makes you hesitate to avoid further wounds. The subconscious always operates for your safety, but it cannot distinguish between real danger and a memory of danger. And that is what creates the knot. To release a mental knot, the first step is to recognize it. Not to blame the past, but to understand that your reactions today do not always come from today. Jonathan could hear himself clearly only when he saw that his hesitation came from an old story. Margaret could open her heart only when she realized her fear came from a chapter already closed. Recognition is the first light shining into the dark corner. And when light enters, darkness cannot stay the same. The second step is to breathe through the knot. This sounds simple, but it is profoundly powerful. The subconscious communicates strongly through the body. When you are tense, you breathe short. When you are anxious, you hold your breath. When you are afraid, your body tightens. But when you take a long inhale and exhale slowly, you tell your subconscious that you are safe. And only when it feels safe will it loosen the knot and allow you to hear the truth more clearly. The third step is to speak to yourself gently. The subconscious reacts strongly to words. If you tell yourself that you are foolish or weak, it strengthens that belief. But if you tell yourself that you are learning to become clearer, it opens a new doorway. A simple sentence, like "I allow myself to be at peace," can soften the tightness within. I remember another man named Patrick who believed he was never allowed to rest. He held himself to extremely high standards, and whenever his intuition urged him to pause, he felt guilty. His knot was the belief that his worth came from always being strong. When he finally whispered, "I allow myself to be soft," tears fell. Because for the first time in his life, he released a knot he had carried for years. What you need to understand is that a mental knot is not the enemy. It is simply a part of your mind that has been closed for too long. And when you meet it with gentleness, it begins to soften. When it softens, the inner wisdom within you rises again. It never disappears. It only waits for you to create enough space to hear it. Before we end this part, I want to invite you to do something very simple. You can comment "I am ready to change," or simply the number 1 to let me know you are here, and that you have opened even a small corner of your mind to renewal. Thank you for being here and allowing your heart to touch these gentle truths. A letter from the depth of myself. On the long journey of exploring the power of the subconscious, I have witnessed many lives transformed through just a small shift in awareness. And today, as I sit and write these words, I want to speak to you from the quietest place within my mind, that you have never walked alone. From the mornings when you wake with heavy eyes, to the nights you lie awake, unsure of what tomorrow will bring, there has always been a quiet presence in you, steady and gentle, watching every step you take. I call it inner wisdom, the light that never goes out inside each person. I have spent many years guiding those who felt lost back to themselves. And the moment that moves me most is not when they find the answer, but when they realize the answer was never gone. It was only covered by fear, by old memories, by the pressure of life. But when they become still, when they release resistance, when they allow their hearts to breathe again, that voice returns like water finally flowing through a narrow passage after waiting for so long. I want you to know that inner wisdom never speaks in urgency. It does not demand you to be perfect. It does not ask you to be strong all the time. It only needs you to be honest with yourself. Honest with your sadness, with your longings, with the wounds you have never dared to touch. When you are honest, you open a path for light to enter. And when light reaches the places you once hid away, every wound softens. That is how healing happens, quietly, slowly, like a breath. I have often told people that you do not need to search for strength. You only need to remove what is covering it. Because within you, there is always a steady source of energy, a knowing that goes beyond logic. When you trust it, life is no longer a series of challenges that exhaust you, but a journey of discovering deeper layers of who you are. If, in recent days, you have felt tired, that is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of growth. If you have felt confused, it is not failure. It is your mind preparing to renew itself. If the things that once felt right no longer fit you, it is not loss. It is an invitation to step into a fuller version of yourself. The last thing I want to offer you is a gentle reminder that you deserve peace. You deserve clarity. You deserve a life filled with meaning. And none of these things are far away. They are already within you, in each breath, in every moment you choose to return to stillness. If one day you feel lost, place your hand over your heart and whisper softly, "I am being guided." That is enough. You will feel a warmth spreading, not because a miracle appears, but because you have touched the wisdom that has been with you from the very beginning. I wish you continue this journey with a light heart, with soft faith, and with the peace you fully deserve. And wherever you go, remember that the light of your subconscious, the quietest companion of your life, will always be there to guide your way.